Will Anderson, CEO of Roche Pharmaceuticals, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Where are you calling in from today?
From Milan.
Ah, nice.
So today Roche reports good results in 2021, a 9% increase of group sales at about 60 billions of euros, with a 3% increase in pharmaceuticals division sales. So has the demand for newly launched medicines more than offset the impact of biosimilars?
Yes, because we basically had about 4.5 billion Swiss francs of decline in these three medicines that are affected by biosimilars, and notwithstanding that, we were still able to grow 3%. So we did more than offset the impact of biosimilars, and we plan to do that again. Well, every year in the future, I hope, but for sure in the immediate future, because now the biosimilar impact will be much less going forward because there's not much left of the sales of those medicines.
Mm-hmm. I see. For what concern the new launched medicines, I was reading about medicines that can treat severe diseases, namely Hemlibra for hemophilia, Ocrevus for multiple sclerosis. What can you say about these new medicines, which are more important for the future?
Yeah. Well, Ocrevus now is the leading therapy for multiple sclerosis in the world. It has really excellent efficacy for patients with relapsing MS, but it's also the only therapy that's approved and that's been shown to work for patients with primary progressive MS, which is the most severe form. So we see continued growth of Ocrevus as more patients around the world are choosing Ocrevus, whether it's new patients or patients who've been treated with some other medicine and they're looking for a better answer. Hemlibra, likewise, it's a revolutionary medicine that has reduced the need, especially for people with hemophilia, to give themselves frequent IV infusions. So typically, these people with hemophilia, they have to dose themselves with a intravenous infusion up to daily, every other day, 3 times a week. With Hemlibra, they get a simple sub-Q injection, like your vaccine injection, and that can be once a week or once every 4 weeks. And the great majority of patients have 0 bleeds with that. So it's been a very popular choice for people with hemophilia, and we see continued growth there. But also we have these new medicines, like for example, for eye diseases. You might have an elderly relative who has macular degeneration where they lose vision in one eye, or diabetic macular edema, people with diabetes. It's a common side effect of diabetes or embodiment of diabetes where they lose their vision. And now we have 2 new medicines that are approved for eye disease. So we think those will be increasingly important. And then we have many important cancer readouts this year. So, and then finally, gantenerumab in Alzheimer's disease. So it's really a lot to talk about. I'm sorry, we don't have more time.
Okay. So more generally, what has been the impact of the pandemic on your business?
I would say, from a standpoint of our medicines, it's been generally negative for most of our medicines because there's been a decrease in cancer screening. There's been a decrease in people being treated. There's also a decrease in patients with chronic diseases like multiple sclerosis or hemophilia. They've been going into their doctor less often, and it's normally when they would go into the doctor and, for example, they would see, oh, they're not doing so well, that's when they might switch to one of our innovative therapies. So it's been generally bad for our medicines. However, two medicines, Actemra was found early on in the pandemic. It seemed to be delivering a benefit. In fact, Italy was one of the first countries where Actemra was used extensively. And it's now been demonstrated to reduce the need for mechanical ventilation for hospitalized patients and reduce deaths. So it's part of the standard of care for hospitalized patients. And then Ronapreve is our combination of neutralizing antibodies against COVID. And that's also been approved around the world. So those two medicines have grown because of the pandemic, but the rest of the portfolio has reduced. And so it's been a bit of a trade-off.
I see. I was in Basel 2 years ago, just before the beginning of the pandemic, and after the takeover of Spark Therapeutics. And we talked about gene therapies that are already able to change the lives of patients suffering from rare genetic diseases, such as certain forms of blindness. But in the future, they could also treat common diseases. What is the state of the art and what is the perspective?
Yeah, I think in gene therapy circles, they tend to talk about the first generation of therapies, which is especially therapies targeting monogenic disorders. A monogenetic disorder, as it sounds, is one basically where there's one gene that the patient has that is problematic and is causing their disease. And that's the easiest thing to do with the gene therapy, is basically to do something that offsets the effect of that bad gene. So I think we're still very much in that generation. I think we're pleased with the progress that's been made at Spark over the last couple of years. And we have a couple of programs that are heading towards the phase 3 studies, including we hope to start phase 3 studies for hemophilia A gene therapy in 2022. But I think the future promise of, for example, using gene therapy to deliver a drug, I think that there's great promise there, but it's still a ways off. I think the technology and knowledge of how to best deploy it is still got some work to do.